Cool. All right. Okay, everybody. Welcome to day 3 of our Teaching Online Expert series. I'm so chuffed to have Taryn here because she really is an expert on this because she's been doing it for a while now. Before I introduce her, I would like to just do a bit of a check-in for some people who have sent me some stuff. Yoga Elo in Darwin starts teaching her classes on Tuesday online and already has 12 people booked in. I love that. And Laura in South Australia, in Adelaide, she messaged me to say that she has sold 3 places already in her April membership, online membership. So love that. Well done. And just waiting for my Gmail to load. I had some here. I wanted to read out just a couple of emails that I have had come through. Another bunch of people have been asking me about insurance and what you're covered for and what you're not when you're teaching online. And I'm not going to answer that for you. You can ask what other people are doing, and maybe Taryn, you could, if appropriate, talk about what you do. But folks, definitely you all deserve to get great advice about things like insurance. So this is one of the areas where I'm not going to tell you what to do about insurance because I'm not qualified to talk insurance specifics. Danny, tell me and I'll open my mouth. Tell me when you're about to take the photo. But there has been some great conversation going on in on that front in my Facebook group. So jump in on that chat if you want to. I also wanted to say that Tess emailed me to say she was just about to sign the lease on her own yoga studio. And so this has come as a real blow to her, but maybe going online is a way to get started. And I just wanted to say to everybody who has had a significant setback like that, like I emailed Tess, now is a really great time. If you were just about to embark on a significant project and you've had to postpone it, now is a brilliant time to be building more community so that when you are ready to launch, you've got even more people who are interested to hear from you and know who you are and what you're about. So it's not all bad news at all. Rachel sent me an email to say that that she hasn't been teaching for the past 12 months because she was nursing her husband through his transition with cancer. So sending love already, Rachel, about that. So 5 weeks ago, she decided to take herself off to Rishikesh to immerse herself in yoga. And when she sent me the email, she was waiting for her flight home from Delhi. And she's just hoping that she's going to get in. So Rachel, we hope you get home too. And we hope that you enjoy your 2 weeks of self-quarantining upon return. And we're all sending you a whole bunch of love. So that's just a little bit of catch-ups that I wanted to do. Now, let me introduce my fabulous guest for today, Taryn Sirianni, who is in Derby in WA, and she has a home-based studio. She has an incredible social enterprise of a yoga apparel line. And the reason, well, there's 2 reasons. The first reason that I've asked her to be a guest is because she has built and run her own online studio for a while now. The second reason is because she's fabulous. Welcome.
Oh, thanks so much, Amy. I'm really excited to be here and have a chat with you all.
And I'm so grateful to you, Taz, because I know that you've been doing this for all sorts of people who have lots of questions, and you've really been supporting a bunch of yoga teachers already with lots of advice. So thanks for giving some more time to the gang and showing up here today for us. What about we start with, well, first up, while people are watching, they also have their phones and they can also be following you on Instagram. So tell us your 2 Insta accounts so people can get to finding you while we're chatting.
Yeah, sure. So my regular Instagram account for all my yoga offerings is Inspire Yoga Desire. And then I've got a separate Instagram account for my social impact leggings, and that's Kimberly Yoga Attire.
Fab. And Louise, I agree with you. You're not super loud, Taz, on the...
I'm not?
No. We might have to get you to scooch a little.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So tell us about... I want to start with the rationale with why you decided to start teaching online, because you've been doing it for a while now.
Yeah, so I probably started about mid last year. And I guess, can you hear me a little better?
A little better. Who else is, I know you might have to really I might have to talk more softly and everybody else might have to crank their sound. Amy will talk more softly. That might make it better. And then we're at the same volume.
Right. I'm still getting heads shaking. It's
just going to be a bit echoey. That's just the way it's going to be. Let's persist.
Yeah, so I was probably where everyone is, or a lot of people are now, about 6 months ago. Well, actually, for a while now, I've known that I've needed to go online for a couple of reasons. The first one mainly being because my community is scattered all over the place. So I'm in the remote Kimberley, and so the distance between people in my community can be up to 550 kilometres. And I had an outreach program where I was travelling to them, but it just wasn't viable for me to continue to do that. However, they kept saying, we want yoga, give us more yoga. So I knew I had to get online. So that kind of just sat in the background for a while. Meanwhile, I had friends and family elsewhere saying, oh, you live so far away, can't you be where we are and do some yoga for us, as they saw the bigger business grow and everything else. So I had them saying that. And then last year, I went through some significant health challenges, which were taking me, and I operated a studio there in Derby, and that took me away from my studio for a month at a time. So I still had to meet rent with my studio up north. I was well enough to still teach, and it was still important for me to be connecting with my students. So that's when I knew I just need to do this online thing.
Awesome. And I imagine there are people who are watching this, maybe they're watching the replay because it's hideous o'clock for them, but there are people in the UK listening to you say, my people are quite dispersed, and everybody's like, yeah, me too. And then you say 550 kilometers and people in the UK just kind of have the mind blown emoji that such a thing even exists. Okay, so tell us then, one of the reasons that I love what you do in how you run your online classes is because it really is an online studio, and people sign up for your classes like they would when you were running a studio. So tell us a little bit about how it works as from the point of view of a student. What do they buy and how long and all of that stuff?
Yeah. So I guess I've got a booking software, and my booking software integrates with Zoom. So they go to my website, to my online studio page, they click the link that says enter the studio, which goes to my booking software with all of my classes there. Then they click the class they want to participate in. That could be on a pass, there's different options. They could have a code to, if I'm doing some sort of offering half price class or whatever, they could use a code, or if they're on class passes, they could have a coupon for say 10 classes at a time. And I was running it in terms. However, in the last 2 weeks, because everything has just, well, I don't really need to explain. I've shifted all my classes in person to the online studio as well. So I'm not running them in specific terms. I'm just running them for as long as, while people really need yoga as they do now. So then once they book in, they get sent an email, and in that email is everything they need to know to join, which is not much. There's a little bit about their setup, where they might like to position their camera, maybe what props they need.
Go on. I've got a list of questions, and I'll loop back. Keep going. It's great.
And it's very much based on the average householder. So not everyone has their own equipment. So I suggest alternative options, like I think you mentioned it in the call yesterday, books for blocks, ties for straps, pillows for bolsters, any sort of chair for a chair. Yeah. So I'm not that specific. And then when the time comes, they just click on the Zoom link, and we're all in a call like we are here today.
So good. And So can you tell us a little bit about the software for people who want to know the specifics? And what's the software that you use in your business?
Yeah, sure. So I use Acuity Booking or Acuity software, which I think a few people that I've spoke to already have got that, have gone and purchased that, and I've seen some great online studios now running, which is so good, and I'm so excited to join in on some classes because I never get to go to anyone else's class. So I just think this is the best thing for me. So I use Acuity, and the reason for that is that when I started the online studio, I contacted a friend, my dear friend Nancy, who was already doing it, and I just piggybacked off her systems, and she spent a lot of time researching the different systems that you could use, what the best one was to be user-friendly, and that integration with Zoom, that was the most important, so that you didn't have to do as much manual labour, I guess, with the booking, all sort of automated once they book in.
How have you found, just a curiosity for people that are listening in, Taz, how have you found the attitude of or how have you found interacting with the students who came in person and saying, hey, now it's online? Have you had any, some people have sent me some messages that some people are a bit snarky about it. Have you had anything like that?
I've had all positive feedback, and a lot of people really enthusiastic to now use the online studio, whereas before it was the opposite. So my online people loved the online studio, and most of the time it was because they didn't have access to any yoga, so they just thought, you know, at least now we can have yoga. But my people in Derby that I was doing yoga for in person, they could use the class passes that they use in Derby for the online studio too, but very rarely they did that. So I think if they had the choice, just from my experience of a class in person, that's what they would prefer. So when I said a couple of weeks ago that it was all going to go online, I was really frightened about what my regulars here in Derby would think, but I think they all realise that this is just what has to happen, and they love their yoga, so if they want to continue to do yoga, then this is the option.
Barbara's asked a great question. Do you have people in different time zones? And if so, does your software help people to know when to show up?
Yeah, absolutely. So the software, you can click your time zone.
In Acuity, you select your time zone, right?
What's that?
You select your time zone in Acuity, or?
Yeah, in Acuity, so when you book it in. But I've also made a point when I list my classes to put in brackets Australian Western Standard Time as well, because I'll put the day and the time, like Tuesday 6 o'clock slow flow, or next to 6 o'clock I'll say AWST.
Yep.
So people know, because I have had people on the East Coast, and when I've advertised the classes, they've not realised it was in WA time until they've gone to book in, and then you can see.
That's 4 hours, 3 hours later or earlier.
Yeah.
Later for them. So
yeah.
I want to come back to one point that I hadn't thought of asking, but I think it's important. Taz, before you merged the things together and a part of your business was just for the online classes, we'll talk about how you found the people later, but I'm curious to know, because people often say to me, why would someone buy my classes when they can do classes with insert famous yoga person? But you had people come into your online classes that had never met you in person, but signed up to your online classes. I'm curious, what would you say to people who are thinking, well, why would you pick me when you could pick Keno McGregor or Jason Crandall or whomever? I'm curious to know what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly had those thoughts when I started as well. But I just think there's a teacher for everyone, and a lot of my students that came to the online studio were people that I'd met through my remote programs or bits and pieces, so they were familiar with my style of yoga. But then there was also some random people that maybe it was a little bit of word of mouth. A friend of a friend also lived remotely. You should do Taz's online yoga. And then there was just some, I have no idea.
Facebook ads, girl. Come on now.
I was going to say that, except I learned Facebook ads, and I think I ran some good ones towards the end.
Yeah, you were crushing it. I remember. We'll loop back to Facebook ads for anybody who's like, oh my God, Facebook ads. Okay, so Acuity, you use Zoom. What about the emails? Is that automated? Have you set that up so it all just happens?
That's all automated through Acuity. Like, I love Acuity; it is so good. But you can set what that says, so you can make you can make it super friendly, or your tone of voice, or however you are. So it's not like they're getting just a standard, email that doesn't really sound like you. You can add your logo. You can really customize it.
And also put in, make it a tax invoice, folks, so that you don't, for people that want an invoice, you don't have to do that secondary.
Yeah. All that's done, and then they get a reminder half an hour before the class, I think, maybe an hour. You can set when they get that reminder as well.
How do you work with refunds? Like, if someone's bought an online class and they don't show up, is that just too bad, so sad? What's your policy?
Yeah, so it is, but they can reschedule or cancel in advance. So on their receipt or their link to join at the bottom, it says reschedule or cancel. If they cancel, I'm just thinking, my people are on passes. If they cancel, they don't lose a class from their pass in advance.
At the last minute, or do you have a time period on that?
I'm not sure if I've got a time set on it. Yeah, I think I probably would, maybe 30 minutes or an hour beforehand. Otherwise, they can reschedule to another class. But if they don't do any of those and they miss the class, well then, unless, that they contact me and there's some specific circumstance and they really want their money back from that class, but I haven't had that before.
How many people can you accommodate? How many people fit in your online studio?
Well, before I put my regular classes online, I'd set it to 12. Now I've set it to 15. But having said that, I have not had 12. So I've probably had about 10 maximum. And probably the average maybe 7 or 8.
Okay. And can I ask, what's your pricing? And have you altered the pricing for your in-person people now that they're online?
No, so it's all the same for that reason. Because people think that just because you're doing something online, it's cheaper. But from my experience, that your booking software is kind of like, well, you might have a booking software at your studio anyway, but you've got to pay your Zoom, your credit card fees, so and all the setup, and you might have people contacting you, how do I set myself up, so your time involved in that. So my prices are the same. And
how much does a drop-in class cost?
My drop-in classes are $17, and that's kind of the market for my area.
Perfect.
And then I have class passes or term passes, depending if I'm running a term, like I have before in the online studio. And now, because it's gone a bit funny, because I've got people in person joining, they're on different passes.
And tell us, because I love the idea of you all like taking each other's classes. I just can't, that's just such a great idea. Like, you better believe it that Taryn is going to Karen's class. Like, that is happening. If it hasn't already, look out, Lilydale. Debbie's coming over.
I've been waiting for this moment because I've signed up to like low subscriptions before, and those ones and it's just not the same as when you know the teacher, and live streaming, and even just to be able to log on and get a greeting in person. It's that little bit, it's what we go to yoga for normally.
So tell us what's the website, so that if anybody would like to come to one of your classes, they can book themselves in.
Yes, so you can just go to yogadesire.com.au, and then there'll be a tab at the top that says online studio, and it'll say online yoga timetable, something along the lines of that.
Awesome. If someone's at their keyboard, go ahead and type that in for other people who can click it. Thank you for all of that. That's so fun. I'm coming to all of your classes. Okay, so refunds. Okay, now this is the part that I had a session with the fabulous Irina in Brussels the other night, and we were trying to figure out how you set things up so that you can see them and they can see you. And so you said just now that you try and give your people some instructions so that you can see. Do you watch your students practicing and give them verbal assists, or can you see everybody? How does it look on your end?
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends on what your teaching approach is.
Mm-hmm.
So I certainly try and see everyone, so that if someone is doing something like super unsafe, I can get the whole group out of whatever we're doing. You know, everyone come out, let's try this. So you still have that responsibility as a teacher. However, I kind of still have quite a hands-off approach with my teaching, and I'm really encouraging people to go quite inwards. So I don't actually do all that much demonstrating, only when I feel that I need to. So it's a lot of verbal cues like this, so they can really have their own experience and not rely on me being the teacher so much. Did you want to say something?
Yes, I love this stuff. So when you're teaching your online classes, are you mostly just on your bolster, or so you're not doing the practice with them?
Not necessarily.
Okay, cool.
I am sometimes, so it's kind of like when I'm teaching in a yoga studio. I might be walking around the room talking verbal cues, and then other times I think I really need to demonstrate this one, so I'll be on my mat and I'll do it. But most of my people that come do practice yoga already, so I find it's a lot of verbal cues.
Great.
Yeah, so and then there's times like where, like I've seen people think that they have to set up their camera and leave it there the whole time. But if I want a better view, a wider view, a shorter view, normally in a transition, when people are going through a transition, I'll just pick up my laptop on my yoga block and just move my computer.
That was something else I was going to ask you about. Like, yeah, how can you see everybody, and like are you using a big screen, or how can you make sure that with all of those, if you've got 10 little boxes, I mean, maybe I just need glasses, but how do you see everybody all at once?
Well, I guess I just do. But
little boxes.
I mean, I've kept it pretty simple. I just use my laptop, but I have seen one of my teachers. She has a screen, and that's quite a lot bigger. So so that's probably where I'll invest in next.
Yeah.
So if I'm demonstrating something where I need a wider view and not so much verbal cues, then yes, I can't see very well. But I can't see them anyway because I'm doing the pose.
Good point.
So, you know, yeah, I'm doing the pose, so I can't see them. Yeah.
I just have to do this memory thing, true confessions of a yoga teacher. The fabulous Barbara, who my friend is here, and I remember she confessed to me once that I taught this online class, and it was restorative, and you know, it was all verbal because I think it was only audio, and okay, really good job. And then afterwards, Barbara sent me this message to say, that was really good, I really enjoyed it. And it wasn't until afterwards that I realized that you should have been doing everything prone instead of supine. Like I must have left something quite important out, and poor Barbara did everything upside down because of my bad verbal cues.
That's right. So that's why it is good to see people, so you can just see that they're getting your instructions. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Sally Ann says, depending on the space, you might just get the top or the bottom half. Exactly, Sally Ann. I think this is where the magic comes into it. One of the things I'm wondering about, Taz, is like if it's drop in, and so you might be having new people come that you don't know yet each time. How much time of a class do you have to spend explaining how to use the technology? Or telling people to turn their microphone off, or adjust their camera, or?
Well, they get that already in the email.
Sure.
They get sent. And I might say a little bit at the, so when they join, they're all on mute anyway, so I'm always in control of that.
That's a really good point for everybody.
And I mean, I don't get hung up about how they're positioned or how I can, you know, some people don't want to be seen, so some don't even want their camera on.
Okay.
And that might just be because they've got poor internet reception that day, and that makes a better connection. Or some of them, you know, don't see the need, it's their practice. You know, I'm just here to listen to you and have you be my guide, but I'm also listening to what I need and my body, and that's fine as well. So, but I kind of operate like that when I run my classes in person as well. You know, I don't necessarily get hung up on where mats are or how they're, you know, positioned so much. I just figure that people that position their camera so that I can see them really clearly, they might be the people that come along to my class and have the card that says, yes, I want assists or adjustments today.
Yes.
And the people that have positioned their camera, you know, maybe half of their heads up, or just they're obviously not you know, it's not important to them that I might give some specific instructions to them. And so maybe if they were to come to a class in person, their permission card would be, no, I don't need specific adjustments, or you know, yeah.
I do think though that for folks who haven't done this before, the first time that you do it, it probably is worthwhile to factor into your class plan a little bit of time to just talk to people about the tech and how to interact with it. Like that might take a few minutes. And anybody who has already found that that's a thing, type into the chat. Someone, sorry, let me just scroll up. Marnie asked about if it would be possible, Taz, and I'm going to just leave this here, and if it is, you can do it later, it would be great if we could see what are the things you send out in that email to tell people to get prepared. That sounds like a really powerful resource. So maybe if you're up for sharing it later, you can send it to me and I can post it in the group, or you can post it in my group. And Jen, that is a great tip about having multiple screens so that you can see people big and also small. I like that. Louise wants to know, do you record your classes and offer them to your students if they want to catch up?
I don't, because I think my recordings would be rubbish because of the way that I teach. So it would have to be a audio, you know, because of half the time I'm verbally cueing and minimal time demonstrating. It probably wouldn't make a good video if someone was looking at a video to copy me or look at me. You know, that's sort of not really what you know, that's just kind of not what I've done. However, people have asked me for that. So I have thought if I was going to do that, I would probably set up my phone so it was recording and have my husband do the practice behind me, so that people get my verbal cues and they also get him demonstrating, and record that and then release that. But in my online studio, if people have booked into a term, so they've signed up for Tuesday night at 6 o'clock and they miss that, they've got 2 other classes that week that they can make their classes up in. So that's how I've just offered it like that.
I really love it. And that's one of the reasons I was so keen to get, one of the reasons why I was so keen to get you on as a guest, because you literally are running these like a yoga class. Like it is actually yoga classes online as opposed to streamed classes or pre-recorded classes. It is the way you do it, it is completely interactive. Like as you would if you were going to a yoga studio, because folks, remember that the premise here is that Taryn was looking to engage with people who could not go to a studio. So they could get Glow or they could get whatever, Wi-Fi dependent where they were, but they wanted that studio feel. So it does, I don't think it's fair to say that you don't record them because your teaching is rubbish. I think what you mean is that you don't record them because they're of that moment, and they wouldn't be as usable for people who weren't actually there.
It would probably be like it's very hard to set up a recording in your studio when you're teaching a class in person, you know, to capture the essence of the class. Yeah, but just the energy of a live class is very different to the energy of something pre-recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just the warmth of it. You know, so many of the people who have emailed me over the past 72 hours about loving doing these. It's not so much even about the content, although the speakers are great. It's just about feeling connected and a part of something that's actually happening right now. And so for anybody who's still hesitant or hasn't started yet, I mean, your people, they want to still interact. I sent in the MailChimp. I seriously just spent 2.5 hours synced up with the Netflix or whatever while I was on the FaceTime with my sister, because we just want to actually still be in community with real people in the moment. So there's great value in teaching like this. It doesn't have to be polished. It's not going to be reused. It's just actually a class that happens to be on your computer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also, for anyone that signs up to my online classes, I invite them to my closed online group as well. So that, like at the start or at the end of a class, there might be a bit of interaction with teacher and student. You know, a student might say, that particular thing did not feel good in my body, or, this is it. So they've got the opportunity to ask me either privately or in the public forum in that group. So they've still got contact with me. It's not like I end the meeting and that's it. I give, I make myself a little bit available. So if there's any other questions, or if it's a particular theme and I find something online that matches the theme, I might pop it into that group and say, hey guys, whoever joined on Monday night, this is a really interesting article about such and such.
I love that.
Yeah, just to help build that sense of community.
Barbara's already booked in for your Tuesday morning class, Taz. And she says the system was really easy.
It's been really easy, did she say?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Barbara, you are the best networker.
Barbara will get the email, the confirmation email. So forward that on, I guess.
That's how we should do it, folks. If you want Taryn's template, you've got to book in for a class. That sounds fair to me.
Run a live free class for yoga teachers next Thursday at 3:30 p.m. my time, I think I said it. But mainly, I'm going to do a bit of yoga, but it's just so that teachers can get the experience of being the student.
Cool.
And then we have a little bit of a Q&A. So it's not about doing my yoga, or anything like that. But I'll just set up a little mock yoga class so that teachers can dial in, pretending that they're their students, and get a feel of what it might sound like or look like or be for their students.
Awesome. That sounds great. Jody says you can do a recorded class anytime, but that Sangha that you're looking for. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Can we go back to this Facebook group? Because I love the idea of having a forum where you can debrief and ask questions and share more information. But I imagine, like I would advocate at an in-person class, being mindful of energy vampires and people who want to stay longer and ask you all the things. How do you manage your boundaries on how much you give in that Facebook group?
Yeah, so just like my other Facebook pages for my business and my Instagram, at specific times I just go in there and check it, do whatever, respond to things, maybe post something, and then I'm out again. So it's just about boundaries, and I think you taught me that quite well, Amy. So setting those times aside just to do. I don't have notification. I don't have it on my phone. It doesn't come up on my screen when someone posts. Only when I go into the app, and I do make sure I check it because it's a group that I'm running.
Yep.
It may be in the morning and it may be in the afternoon or once a day. Yeah.
Love it. How can people get onto your I'm sorry, but they're not just coming to learn about talk to Q&A afterwards. They also would love to come to your yoga. We're yoga teachers. We're addicted to this stuff. We can't get enough. How do people find it, Taz? How do they get into it?
Well, I've set it up, but I haven't really started advertising it yet. So maybe follow me.
Yes, perfect. So people send
Yeah.
DM on Insta and you can send them whatever they need later.
Yeah, so it's all set up. It'll either be on my website or my Instagram.
Cool.
In my bio soon, probably
Cool.
in a couple of days or early next week.
Okay, so if you want in on that, you need to do a little bit of cyber stalking of Inspire Yoga Desire to find it. Danny's stalking you already. So how do you advertise these? How do people find out? Let's have the conversation about, Danny, can you type in Taz's Insta again into the chat? How do people find out about these classes? How do you sell them?
So probably the same sort of way as selling my other classes. Social media, newsletters, MailChimp, and the Facebook ads. Yeah, just the same way on your website and bits and pieces.
I love
nothing.
Such an important message. Like what I'm really getting from you is that it's seriously no different. It's just you doing a yoga class. And so you sell it and you advertise it just like you would do for your yoga classes.
Yes. And I've kept it simple, you know, like even with my tech, it's just super simple. And I know I could get a bigger screen or, you know, microphone or whatever, but at this stage, it hasn't been a problem for my people. Maybe when everyone gets online, I may need to get a little more tech savvy or get some different equipment. But I guess that's the message I really wanted to get across to everyone is like, just do it. And don't worry about it. It doesn't need to be perfect. And you don't have to, you know, you have to pick up and move your camera at a certain point so you can demonstrate better. You know, it's fine. Just be you.
I love this. And because a lot of not a lot, a portion of the feedback I've been getting in running this series has been like, it feels like a big undertaking, but I'm going to do it. Like this sense of, it's this massive thing that I know I'm going to do it and I'm just almost confident enough, but it feels gargantuan. And what we're getting from you is it doesn't have to be a big deal. Maybe there's a bit of like hooking things together, MacGyvering the back end a little bit, but the teaching is just the teaching.
Exactly. And I did do some free, I think 2 free classes or 4 free classes at the start. And then I did 2 practice classes on my yoga teacher friends.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so I just private messaged them and I think Jodie came to one of those. And my sister and my mum comes to my online studio every week. And yeah, she does a bit of yoga, but half the time I think it's just so she can see my face every week.
Does she pay?
Yeah, she does. Or make her pay like everyone else.
Oh, so
she wants, you know, I think she would pay anyway. Yeah.
I love it. So what the last question that I had written down on my notes for us is to just, I'd love it if you could talk a little bit more about just tips for getting started and anything. Let's start maybe with practical tips. You've given us so much already, but is there anything else that you learned through sort of trial and error, anything else that you could share with us on the practical front about getting going for because you've been doing it for this period of time?
I've had a few people contact me this week to say, like, is Zoom the best streaming platform because they've heard that it's getting clogged up or it's dropped out. But I've never had that problem, and I've been operating in these last couple of weeks where everyone is on it too. So my response to that was maybe it's the internet connection, because I know up here, since going onto the NBN, our internet does drop out sometimes. So if that's happened just before a class, I've hotspotted from my phone, and my phone hotspot has been strong enough to do a class. Mm-hmm. So occasionally you might come up against some of those technical things such as internet connection. So I would say always have your phone or another device that maybe has satellite on it, so that you could hotspot if you need to if your internet went down. When I was traveling, so when I was away from my studio or my home up here in Derby, you know, when I was down in Perth for my medical stuff, I was dialing in from my bedroom in a noisy household. I took myself to my auntie's one day because I knew that it would be quieter there, then at my mum and dad's house. Yeah, so you might come up, you know, against those sort of things. So you just have to kind of be a little bit creative and think outside the square, and don't feel that you can't bring your students along for the ride, you know. So when I was dialing in from down south, I was like, oh, I'm here, you know, in my old bedroom where I used to grow up, and I'm hoping this is going to be okay, guys. You know, my dog was sleeping in the room at the time because it was 6 a.m. in the morning, and I didn't want him to go out in the house and wake everyone else up. So, you know, just chat to your students as you might do when you walk into a class and have a chat about your day or their day or whatever.
I love that. And again, this is, if we're thinking right here, right now, we're talking about supporting your existing students. So all of those people are not only forgiving when that stuff goes sideways, it actually makes you more relatable. Like people feel like they're more connected to you when, oh, it turns out you're a human as well. Like we loved that Kelly was in her husband's wardrobe, you know. It's just being human with people. So I love that you make that point, that you take people on the journey with you. Danny wants to know if you have your students sign a waiver, and if so, can you do that through Acuity?
Yeah, you can set up a form through Acuity with a waiver on it. At the start, I wasn't sure how to do that, so I was manually sending people who weren't my regular students my waiver and getting them to bring it back. Yeah, so you can certainly do it through Acuity.
Marnie wants to know about using the free Zoom before she buys the paid Zoom, and does it cut off after 40 minutes? Marnie, there was a conversation going on in my Facebook group. I don't know if someone here knows more about it, that apparently Zoom was giving people a little bit longer for free because of Corona. But I'm not sure about that. I know when I used to have the free version, it definitely cuts you off after the 40 minutes. Dee wants to know, Taz, do you need a special requirement in your studio, like mats, etc., for sound purposes? Oh, so we were talking earlier in another session about reducing the echo. Have you done any sort of sound padding or anything in your space to manage sound?
Well, you can probably tell because it sounds like I'm pretty echoey now. So, I mean, I actually haven't, but I haven't had feedback from my students that, and I've, you know, and this is another good thing about having my mum there for one of my classes. I ask her all the time, you know, how was my sound, or how was that? So, I mean, this is my room. Yeah, it's pretty bare. That's probably why it's echoey. So it's probably something I could work on a little bit more.
It's fine for me. And I think, again, like we're teaching, there's sort of meta things going on here. And I don't mean that in like a Buddhist way, in the sense that not only are we getting the teachings that you're giving us directly verbally, but everybody's learning along the way about, we're experimenting with the platform. Like you're all experiencing how to interact with this platform by being here. We're getting a sense of what a tiled floor sounds like. Is it a big deal or not? But also what you're modeling for us, Taz, is like, just freaking do it. And if I've got to go out and buy a mat before I can forget about it, just go get it done. Okay, so there's some chat going on about getting like some extra time or whatnot with Zoom. What else about, maybe could you tell us a little bit then, Taryn, about what would you say to people who feel like they don't have enough to share, or they're not the right person to be online, or, you know, that sort of imposter syndrome? Who am I to have online classes? What would you say to those teachers? Like people who are scared or are feeling hesitant.
Classes. You know, people are coming to your normal classes, right? So why is it any different you just have to maybe do a bit of different advertising, or just bring your existing students. Just start with them along, and this is the great time because they've got no other option.
Yeah.
So just bring them along. They're obviously coming to your classes already, so they're like you. It's nothing about you. And they've already got the opportunity to dial into Yoga Celeb or whoever. They can't not do that now, and they're not doing it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I'm curious, just, and you don't have to share if you don't want to, but I hope you will. Have you had any students drop off in the transition to virtual? Did anybody say thanks, but no thanks, I'll come back once you're in person again?
Yeah, I had a few people, not, well, it's hard to know because I haven't gone all online and then gone back to classes in person. So this will be a little bit of a test. But I have had a few people say, yeah, I don't want to do the online thing. Just let me know when your classes are up and running again. Not like you're losing me as a student or anything, just that, yeah, that's not really for me. I spend too much time at a computer screen anyway. I'd rather, spend that hour going for a walk or doing something else.
But not a massive number.
No, it was only a couple. So most were really enthusiastic about embracing, going online, particularly at this time when that was the only option.
Great. All right, folks, if you have questions, I've worked through all of mine, so it would be quite generous, Amy, if you'd let everybody else ask a couple. Type them into the chat if you haven't already. Karen wants to know, do you give your students time for a chat before and after the class? That's a great question. Like, do you show up a bit early, turn the Zoom on so people can say hello or not?
I don't. I probably turn it on within 5 minutes. At the start, I was turning it on a lot earlier, but then it just, people already in their little zone. So then it just got awkward because I was silent, Babe was silent, just waiting, have a little bit of a chat. But you also don't want to be chatting to a particular person and then everyone else starts to dial in. So, if someone's, so I kind of just keep it within the 5 minutes and I dial in, and I don't leave it for, a lot of conversation, because you don't really do that, when you go to a yoga studio, either. The teacher doesn't really, go around and say, they might, when they meet you at the door, but at the start of the class, how are you, they might at the door. But once the class gets going, and that's why I created that online group, in case there were discussions that needed to be had, that we didn't get that time after or before, that we could do it in that group. But I certainly, I greet everyone and I acknowledge everyone.
It says so much about our teaching styles, though, because I totally get where you're coming from, and I can imagine that you're the sort of teacher who people come in and they have some quiet time and maybe they do like restorative something or other, whereas my students are like, this is my jam recipe and who's doing this, and like there's just until I say, right, stop, sit down. So for me, I probably would start the video a bit earlier and people would do their thing, but that's because that's what my classes are like. So again, we're just talking about what you're already doing, but just shifting it to online.
And it's different online because people, they're dialing in from their space, so there's no one else around, and they often don't know the other people in the group. So it's not like they can, there might be a few, and we might build a little bit of a community because we get familiar, but some of them choose to have their setting, on just me and them, so they don't actually know who else is in the group. So there's not much need for talking between students like there is that might happen in a regular class.
Unless you have students like Karen, by the sounds of it, and also like me. And part of the reason they come to yoga, I'm sure, is for the chat before and after, not with me, with each other. Lorraine, yes, we totally covered it. So I might get you to go back and listen to the start, lovely. because Taz did cover it in detail for us, which is awesome. I imagine, Marnie, that is a private group just for her students. So if you buy a class pass, you'll probably get into the Facebook group. Danny says, I'm trying to break into teaching lives to my USA family and friends, as it will be a bargain for them with the exchange rate. God, you're a good businesswoman. I've done a couple of free classes, but no one has made a purchase yet for my term starting next Wednesday. Any hot tips for getting them on board? What do you got, Taryn? Any hot tips for Danny to get them on board?
I would say don't get disheartened. Mine started off very slow. You know, I certainly, the first term I ran, I didn't do Facebook ads. The second term, I certainly did do Facebook ads, and that seemed to make a difference. Yeah, but I would say, especially at this time, you know, just don't get disheartened. Just keep going, keep trying. I don't have any special words or tips or secrets that I did. You know, I would love to have my classes, you know, like I said before, the average is about 8, which is actually a good number. But, you know, I've had 4 or I've had 2, you know, or I've had 10. So, and even when people have bought class passes, there's been a little more commitment, but it still seems to be the same as, you know, going to a regular class. Things come up for people. They can't make, you know, classes from time to time.
Someone, sorry, I've lost it in the chat, but someone asked, is it about a tutorial to link Zoom and Acuity? Is that, do they interact with each other? Taz, is it fairly easy to figure that out?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, so that it's just a click of a button in Acuity. Yeah.
I think it's the same in a Google Calendar. There's like a button that says, do you want to make this a Zoom meeting? Yeah, interact. Integrate.
I've also set up, sorry.
No, go.
I've set up little meetings of free discovery calls, just 20 minutes with me. If anyone wants a bit more, you know, one-on-one with that sort of thing, and that's available on my Instagram as well, because I'm pretty all over the back end of Acuity now. You know, particularly if you've got class passes and you're wondering how to set those up and that sort of thing. Yeah, so I'm happy to go into more detail with anyone at sort of a separate time.
I don't think you need to, because Louise just typed into the chat, it's pretty simple, I just did it. Barbara wants to know, why did you choose to teach in terms rather than ongoing classes? This is a great question, Barbara, because I'm so excited about the answer.
Did you hear the answer?
Go, do it, tell them why.
Amy told me to.
That wasn't what I thought you were going to say. But yeah, it's accurate.
Yeah, I just, well, one, to reduce my admin load. So I've got a bulk time at the start of the term where I run my advertising, I do my website, I do newsletters, and then I'm just into sort of teaching mode. Although we all know there's always admin to do, but it's not as heavy. You know, the heavy stuff is done at the start, and you're trying. Well, I'm trying to get that commitment. So for people to sign up for the full 8-week term or the full 10-week term, because I think commitment is one of the best things for the student. And then also to give me a break in between from teaching. So even though my classes are a little more drop-in now because I've changed, it's all just a bit messy, I'm still actually going to break for 2 weeks over the school holidays. So I can just have a clear, teaching break. Yeah.
Yeah. Danny, you might have to use a different scheduler if it doesn't integrate with iCal. I suspect that might be, sorry about that. Karen asks, I'm thinking about doing a monthly subscription or whether to stick with terms. Karen, I don't know which Karen was that you, Karen B? That typed that? Stick with terms, girl. Your people know it. It gives you a holiday. You have kids. You have holidays. Stick with terms. All right, last call for any questions, or Taz, if there's anything that you wanted to share and I haven't asked you it yet.
I don't think so.
Okay. Oh, Barbara wants to know, what time are your classes? Oh, because you might like to go. Is that why?
My time, there's a whole heap of different times. Should I just
website? Type in your website so people can go look.
Yeah, someone that's already booked in want to put the link in the chat. But they're mainly to suit me and living in Western Australia. So you'll find most of them are at 6 p.m. or 6:15 p.m. or 5:45 or 6 a.m. in the morning. So they're not the best time for East Coast friends.
So they're great time for the UK.
Yeah, cool. So I would say stick with the times that suit your current student base best. So don't think about, I'm doing this to try and get more East Coast students or over. Just do what's best for you and your current student base. And you know, like my old boss dials in from Hobart in Tasmania, and she doesn't mind doing hers at 9 o'clock at night because the kids are in bed, she's fed, and it's kind of her time anyway, so that's okay for her, and maybe she doesn't mind the yoga either, so she's willing to do it, so, you know, so late.
You are one of the most humble yoga teachers that I know. Quickly then, Sally Ann says, do you have to set up a special email like Amy did and got wrong, or do you just send it from Zoom? No, I think, Sally Ann, that the reminder emails come through Acuity. Is that right, Taz, that you set it up in your scheduler?
Yeah. So once you set up, I was just going to say, once you set up your classes, it's really like a hands-off, and you just watch your bookings come through. Oh, you really, unless there's some sort of glitch and someone will tell you, I didn't get that link, or if you've clicked all the right buttons, it won't happen, you know,
D in Claire, yes, just stick with what you're doing, girl. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. People don't need more uncertainty right now. Just give people what they've been getting. Awesome. Well, I've got one more thing I wanted to cover, but I wanted to say thanks to you before I do that. Oh, sorry, Jem, and I'll mention what Jem's asking about 2 Facebook ads in a second. Thanks so much, Taz, for sharing everything. It's just really, it's so generous to, honestly, to say this is exactly what I'm doing. And I think it only reiterates that in this community, we have zero time for competition, and it's all just about collaboration and mutual support. It's very generous of you to show us behind the curtain of your business, and to do it in such a humble and straightforward way. I know it's going to inspire a whole bunch of people. So thanks for taking some time on the Saturday afternoon and hanging out with us. It's been great.
Thanks so much, Amy, and thanks everyone for having me. And you know, I say my motives are a little bit selfish because I want to see you all online so I can do your classes. Like I said before, I've been waiting. I live in remote Australia and I can't go to any yoga classes in person in my town. So lovely little community here through Amy, and I'm just so excited. I've already looked up a few schedules actually of yoga teacher friends, and I can, you know, yeah. So
I love that.
Thanks for.
You're so welcome. It's been an absolute joy. I was thinking before, you know, just while I was faffing around on a Saturday, that, you know, when everything's back in rolling as per usual, we're all going to, you know, economic stimulus is going to be a thing. And I just decided I'm just going to get in my car and drive to all the yoga studios everywhere and do drop-in rates all over town and punch some money back into everybody's yoga business. So I think, you know, buying some classes off each other is a really nice thing to do. Of course, you've got to pay and but you know, it all comes around, and what a lovely way to support each other. I've just got a couple of things. Jem, the only thing I can say really now about Facebook ads is I've got a course coming up about it that you can sign up for if you want, and I'll teach you what I taught Taz. And if you want more information about that, there's a picture at the bottom of all the emails that I'm sending you that'll, if you click it, it'll take you over to show you more info. But Barbara raised a great point in the Facebook message. Thanks, Barbara. She said, just a thing about intellectual property, and I was talking to a client the other day about this too, for people who are teaching online classes for studios. So if you have a studio gig and they've said, we're closing the studio, but we'd like you to still offer our classes for us, but you can do it from your house. Just be mindful about repurposing that content and be clear on who owns that intellectual property. So I would imagine if I taught for a studio, when I show up and I teach them a class, they're paying me for my time, and then they then own the class. And so if you were thinking that you could also, like we talked about yesterday, perhaps record it on your phone and then stick it on your YouTube channel, just be mindful that you might not actually own that the property, or you might not be able to repurpose it in that way. And I have seen some terms and conditions where some studios are quite particular about the content that you're sharing if you're one of their teachers, and if it looks like it's in another studio or something of that nature, then you could be in breach of contract. So do be mindful about, again, I'm absolutely unqualified to give any legal advice, and that is not what this is, but it is a little flag to say, as Barbara reminded me in her message, do be mindful about who owns the classes that you're teaching. So for Taz, she's doing her own thing, she owns it, she can do whatever the hell she likes with it. But if you're teaching online for a studio in the short term, just be mindful about that. I think that is everything. Danny wanted to know when's the next webinar. The next webinar is tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. my time. So Danny, sorry, it's 6 for you, and I can't do the math. It's Sparrow's fart for Taz, and I don't know what everybody else. And it's talking about virtual retreats. So if you want to offer longer things, what that looks like, how you package it up, how much you charge, all of those good things, talking about virtual retreats. There's a couple more of these that I've put up on the page about the agenda for this series that are both with me. I want to do one about the selling and the marketing and the promotions, which is sort of my jam. So there's one coming up on that topic. And then I thought we should also just do a conclusion where we all get together and do any last minute troubleshooting. People can share what they've discovered along the journey. People that are already doing it, I imagine you've got some great hints to share. So so that we're going to do like a final conclusion and celebration call. I am just trying to pin down the two fabulous women at NamaStream to get them on to talk about their platform and what they recommend about teaching online. We've got a bit of a messy time zone situation, but that's on my agenda for tonight to just confirm with them. So keep your eye on that page as I'm updating the classes. Like I said, we're building this, we're gaffer taping this together as we go. I think there's only one confirmed time after Taryn, which is tomorrow at 7 a.m, but I'll update that as soon as I've got more details. I think that's everything, everybody. Thanks, Taryn, again. Thanks, everybody, for being so interactive in the chat. If you know people who you think would benefit from these trainings, all the replays are either on my podcast or on my website under the videos section. So they don't need to sign up if they don't want to. My video section is amymcdonald.com.au/videos, and all the replays are there. So if you can't wait for me to sort my crap out and actually email you the link to the replay, that's the hack on how you can find it. Otherwise, keep on. Stay safe. Wash your hands. No, it's on my website, Marnie, on my website. And I'll see you all at the Crick of Crack tomorrow. Bye. I love the group wave. We need to do like, hang on. Oh, I've got my finger on the end meeting button. Can I do this still? I can't. Oh yeah, I can. Hang on. Let's do the wave. Oh no, I can't. I've already got my finger on the button. It's like a bomb. Sorry. See you tomorrow.